Hi, I'm Droolbatz. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Dead Room, a 2015 horror film from New Zealand. I'm going to be discussing it based on its merits in its premise, quality of the film, production, etc., and how it stands apart from or blends into already existing horror films. Hope you enjoy. So, as I stated, The Dead Room is a fairly recent horror movie, 2015. It's a New Zealand production. It's based on an urban legend about a haunted farmhouse in New Zealand that I guess is from the 1970s. And that definitely influences the premise. It's a pretty commonplace horror premise. Some investigators, two really science-based and one kind of medium-based or, you know, psychic-based investigators are hired by an insurance company to come see if this little farmhouse in New Zealand is haunted or not, because the family who lived there claimed that they were terrorized by a ghost or some such thing. There's three of them. There's an older man, a younger man, and then a girl. The girl is probably in her early 20s, and she's the medium. As they move in, they're kind of, quibble and quabble, and it's kind of a slow burn film. As they start testing for ghost things that they cannot explain start happening, and they have to decide, is there really a ghost here? And then if there is a ghost, what does it want and what's it doing? So it's kind of a common premise, as I stated. Many movies have this, like, is there or is there not a ghost, and science versus spirituality kind of thing going on. So that in and of itself, that's a solid premise. Obviously, there's a reason it's very popular in horror movies, but it's not particularly unique. Production-wise, as I stated, the movie's very slow burn. There are a lot of really long still shots. And it's set in a farmhouse, so it's kind of a smaller building. So pretty much, like, I would say 95% of the film is within the walls of that house, and a lot of the movie is filmed in the hallway, the bedroom, or the kitchen. So you see like tons and tons of the same furniture, scenery, lighting, etc. So the film kind of feels a little repetitive. It just seemed like an interesting choice to me in terms of location, but because they were basing it on supposedly a real life urban legend, I guess they didn't have a lot of flexibility. That said, there was a lot of editing choices that I thought were a little questionable. You can have a slow burn movie without it being boring or repetitive. You can also have a slow burn movie without a lot of extraneous things. This movie had a lot of repetition and a lot of extraneous little, like, not even full scenes, just like mini scenes that I didn't really see why they were in there. For example, the young guy who's one of the science team guys, there's a scene where he's like, reading on the webcam this scary book to his babies with their mom on the other end of the webcam, and it's kind of cute, but the scene, it didn't do anything to kind of explain the relationship or the chemistry between him and the other characters. It didn't come into play later, like, he's like, I must persevere for my children. That didn't come up at all. It didn't have anything to do with the plot, obviously, and then, well, it's not obvious if you haven't seen it, but if you see it, you'll know. Sometimes you can have something that's not related to the plot or the characters, but it's really good in kind of establishing the tone or the vibe of the movie. But this scene didn't do that either. It just felt really out of place to me. There's another scene where the old guy is like, oh, I can't do this New Zealand accent, but pretend I have a New Zealand accent for a minute. He's like, oh, say, Liam, how does this such and such machine work? And the young guy goes, oh, well, the particles and blah, 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 and, well, actually, I don't remember. Why don't you Google it? And it felt a little out of place, and, like, his delivery of the line was really strange. Just didn't need to be in there. That said, the movie, for being a feature-length movie, is very short. It's like, I don't know the exact length. It's like an hour and maybe 10 minutes. It's pretty short for like an actual full-length movie. So I feel like probably they had all these little extra scenes in there, because if they didn't, the movie would not even be an hour long and probably couldn't justifiably be considered a feature-length film. So I think that's why they did it. That's my speculation. I don't know that for a fact. But just, they didn't need to be in there, and I just thought they made the movie have weird pacing. As I stated, some of the lines were kind of weird, like the guy's delivery, like, oh, I don't know how the protons work or whatever. He delivered the line in kind of like a stilted, weird way, and I'm not criticizing the actor per se, but that kind of reflects accurately kind of my view on all of the acting in this movie. It just wasn't extremely convincing. I don't know, it felt kind of sophomore-ish. For example, the girl who is the medium, she is supposed to be, you know, she's been on this team with these guys, professional ghost hunters for this insurance agency for a while. You know, and she's pretty confident, like, oh yes, I've seen ghosts, or like, oh, I can feel a presence. You know, she's not like, oh, you know, I'm a 15-year-old, my powers are just waking up. Like, she's kind of established. She's a reserved character, but she's kind of established in that way. But every time, like, a ghost or something made its way on screen, not made it, but, you know, she'd be like, oh, the temperature has dropped, oh, and it was just, or like, oh, this is really strange, and it was just like, script was kind of weird for the character, I thought, and it just was odd to me, I don't know. The acting wasn't terrible, but just the characters lacked chemistry, and as a result, it kind of just felt like they were all operating within their own little bubble, and the acting just didn't feel solid either. So, production-wise, I didn't enjoy the pacing, the editing, or the acting. And then, I don't know what the deal was, but it was really hard to hear this movie. I was watching it with my earbuds in, and normally when I watch something on my computer, I can have the volume, when it's on like a site like Netflix, for example, they have pretty standard volume. Pretty much most of the things that I watch, I can have the volume at a 4 or maybe a 6. If something's really hard to hear for some reason, I'll usually turn it up to like an 8. I had to turn this movie up to 16, and I had subtitles on. It was just really hard for me to hear. Not all of it, just like a lot of it. And I don't know, I just didn't think the way they utilized music was helpful either, and I just struggled to hear it. So, I don't know, I didn't enjoy that aspect at all. It didn't feel like a movie to me, it felt like a YouTube project that someone had made. And YouTube can be great, but it felt like someone was filming this for like a film class or something. And then they tried to turn it into a full-length movie afterwards. Now I'm going to briefly discuss how this movie kind of compares to other movies in the genre. There will be some spoilers, so I'll give you a moment to bow out if you don't want spoilers. Okay, that's enough time. They see a ghost or whatever, they conclude that there's a ghost, and it's trying to get them out of the house. And the medium girl, like, does the sage stuff and supposedly expels this ghost that she claims is like a tall man. They're like, okay, sweet, we've done our job. They bring in the other insurance agents, and as they're like packing up their equipment to go, the younger guy notices he's getting a weird heat signature on like a secret panel in the wall or something. They're like, oh, there's a secret panel in the wall. And they go down into this room below the house, and it's completely soundproofed. A dead room, you know, it's dead quiet. And there's a body chained to a chair facing away from the doorway, and it's really creepy. It's like this mummified body of this, I assume, woman. I don't know. It had long hair, girl, woman. I'm not sure the age. It was a mummy. Come on. It was really creepy, obviously. And it was like, oh, finally some creepy imagery in this movie. And the medium girl is like, oh no, I'm terrified. I gotta leave. So she leaves, and then the police come to check it out, and they're like, there's no body, and you go, what? But they all just saw the body, and then all of a sudden you realize they released this ghost that was trapped down there, and you realize the big tall man ghost who had like locked that girl down there apparently was trying to protect everyone because she's evil or something. Because they banished him, she's now free to like tear around the house, and she starts murdering a bunch of people. You know, the cops and the insurance agents and everything. This was a very, very similar premise to the I want to say 1973 movie, The Legend of Hell House, which is really good in my opinion. I love that movie. But the premise is very similar. Like, two mediums and two science people come into a house to determine if there's ghost activity. They see one ghost, it's kind of a decoy trying to get them out of the house, and they discover a room with like the actual evil entity in it, and there's a showdown, and they have to like try to kill the actual ghost, kill it, banish it, whatever. The Haunting at Hill House did it way better, honestly. They offered a lot more explanation, and I know that that was based on a book, and because the Dead Room is based on an urban legend, I imagine they didn't have a lot of wiggle room, but they just didn't give us a lot of, us, by us I mean viewers, a lot of explanation about like any of the spirit stuff, but also even like why there were insurance agents there. Felt like it was kind of taking a lot of elements from the Legend of Hell House, which is a great movie. Without knowing the urban legend, I'm not from New Zealand, so I don't know the urban legend. So it was just hard for me to like appreciate that and not think of the Legend of Hell House. That said, I will say, you know, when the mummified ghost is like slamming people around with her telekinetic ghost powers, a lot of times movies will have someone being yanked by the harness or whatever, you know, like 10 feet or whatever. They were yanking these people like 25, 30 feet, like, and slamming them into the wall. I was like, oh man, that's some extreme stunting. So I will say that was a little bit exciting at the end. And there is this scary scene at the end where like the ghost girl is like coming towards you, and then she starts running, and I actually like closed my eyes, which is what you want in a horror film. So the Dead Room was not a super unique film, and I feel like without familiarization of the original legend, it's kind of hard to appreciate it for being a unique story. And if you're not from New Zealand, you don't get all the little nuances that are in there, because I'm not from New Zealand and I didn't get them. That said, it's a pretty good movie if you just want something on in the background, because it does not take a lot of attention to watch. So if you're like, oh man, I really want to do this recipe I'm cooking, but I wouldn't mind having something on in the background, put this movie on. It'll be fine. And there is a good, you know, couple of good scares in at the end. So overall, I would rate this probably 1.5 out of 5 stars. If you have disagreements or would like to shed light on this movie from your perspective, please let me know. Hope you enjoyed it.